And make sure you turn on your notifications when you come in. Thanks for tuning into the show. This is the second live for today. If you did not check out the other live from this morning, go ahead and go. We're going to do is get into my disclaimer. I hope everyone's having a great day. Very busy day. Just now getting back. I wanted to go live around 12 or 1, but I was just too busy. So I did do a live this morning. But we're going to get into that interview. I think it's definitely important because um, some of the things that he's saying. But I'm going to listen to the interview and then I'm going to make some conversations after I hear the full interview. I have heard several of the clips, but I definitely want to get into more of what's being talked about. So come on in, subscribe to the page, hit the like button as you guys come in. But thanks for being here. Let me get in here. I hope everyone's doing great. I hope you're having a great day. Okay. Video, like the video. Let me do my disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, new teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is use permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the second live. Hello, hello, hello. We're going to get into what is going on and listening in on what Diddy's lawyer had to say. And then I'm going to after. Um, if you guys did not know, Diddy is requesting, he was requesting a bond that was up to about what, 50 million? And then they had stated that he may be asking for an acquittal. Then they had said that he might want to seek and get a new trial. So there's a lot going on, and we're going to cover it all. Okay, so the one thing you guys have to remember, Diddy's supposed to be sentenced soon. And then allegedly, they're supposed to go over the alleged civil lawsuits. Now, I can't confirm or deny if those civil lawsuits are real, fake, if the proper information is even attached to those civil lawsuits. If people are trying to sue, they better have proper information to try and sue. Let's start there. But we're going to get to some videos and talk about what's being reported. Then we're going to get into the interview with his lawyer and what he had to say. And I kind of feel like I know why the attorney did the interview, but I'll get into that. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. October prison sentencing. Come on in, everyone. Demanding a new trial and hoping for a presidential pardon, the convicted rap mogul is playing all his cards as the days tick down to his prison sentencing. After being found guilty of 2 felony charges but acquitted on the most serious ones, Diddy filed a motion to overturn the convictions or demand a new trial. TMZ's senior producer Michael Babcock is following the latest twist in the Diddy case. They are asking the judge to actually turn that conviction to an acquittal. They feel like, hey, look, all Diddy was doing here was hiring people to perform in a show that he didn't participate in. And obviously, if the judge were to go along with what they're asking with these motions, then Diddy would walk free and clear. Forget the Donald Trump pardon. Diddy would have this completely behind him. Oh my God, Diddy got arrested! An emotional Aubrey O'Day stunned reaction to Diddy's arrest last September going viral. Aubrey breaking down in tears as she heard the news. I've never in my life thought I would see this happen. The Danity Kane singer, who's been a vocal critic of the jailed music superstar, was taping the reality show Botch presents Plastic Surgery Rewind when she heard the news. And when she visited Extra, she didn't hold back. I think Diddy is a hurt person that hurt people. I think that's what all people that do horrific things are. In a motion filed on Wednesday, lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs want a judge to overturn his recent conviction or grant him a new trial. Earlier
Earlier this month, a jury found Combs guilty in a motion filed on Wednesday. Lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs want a judge to overturn his recent conviction or grant him a new trial. Earlier this month, a jury found Combs guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. He was acquitted on more serious racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. In the filing, Combs' lawyers argued the encounters were consensual, not prostitution. They argue he did not have a financial motive. Combs' sentencing is set for early October.
Like the videos, you guys come in. Like the videos, you guys come in. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Pardon? That's the stunning revelation today from the Is Sean Diddy Combs about to get a presidential pardon? That's the stunning revelation today from the entertainment news website Deadline. Several associates of Combs have been pitching the White House, and President Trump is seriously considering a pardon. Trump and Diddy go way back, socializing together with Melania at celeb-jammed parties. Now, Diddy faces up to 3 years in prison following his conviction 4 weeks ago on the lesser charge of transporting individuals for prostitution. That was considered a victory by his legal team. A Trump spokesperson says the White House will not comment on the existence or existence of any clemency request. Back in May, when asked about a potential pardon for Diddy, Trump had this to say.
I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, so I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact.
Megyn Kelly says, don't do it. Trump should not pardon Diddy, she posted today. He doesn't deserve it. He's a Trump hater. He's a woman abuser. GOP
Allegedly,
voters, most of whom will hate a Diddy pardon.
So now we're going to get into when Diddy's lawyer spoke out. Like the videos, you guys come in. Please like the videos, you guys come in. Fair use reaction clip. Thanks for being here, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Like the videos, you guys come in. There's about 51 in the building. Can I please get 50 people to please double tap that screen to hit the like? As you come in, hit the like. And press 3 if you're new, where you're watching from. Press 3 if you're new, where you're watching from. Press 5 if you've been here before, where you're watching from.
For being on the program today, and welcome back. We're shining our spotlight this morning on the case against Sean Diddy Combs and his latest push to get out of jail.
Now, this is Diddy's lawyer speaking up and speaking out
on prostitution-related convictions. His lawyers just found a brand new motion for bond. So what's it mean? I sat down with his lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, to find out. With me now, Sean Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo. Mark, great to be with you. Thank you for being on the program today. And might I just say, I got to see you deliver the closing arguments in the case, and you were an outstanding advocate for Mr. Combs.
Oh, thank you very much, and thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's get into this bail package that you have proposed. I read your motion, and you talk about the exceptional facts of this case and how the way the Mann Act is being applied is kind of like one of a kind. Would you walk us through what you mean by that, please?
Sure. So the Mann Act was passed in 1910, and it's changed a few times through the years. But really what it's geared at, what it's focused on, is prosecuting people who make money from the business of prostitution. And that's not the allegation against Mr. Combs. The allegation of Mr. Combs, what the jury found, essentially was that he was a user of services provided by sex workers, essentially a John, for lack of a better word. And the Mann Act just historically hasn't been applied to Johns. It's a financial statute. It's really been applied at people who look to make money from prostitution. And so since that's not how it's being applied here, we made the argument that we have to, under the case law and the statutes in this area, that this is an exceptional reason, and that Mr. Combs should be considered for release on bail because of it.
Mark, I read in your motion you say that Mr. Combs may very well be the only John sitting in a jail right now for his crimes. What makes you say that?
So we've done a nationwide survey of Mann Act cases, and we're not all the way finished, but we've looked at probably close to 100 cases, and we don't see any other case where a John, the user of prostitution services, is being prosecuted under the Mann Act. There are instances where the user of prostitution services has some kind of connection with the arranger, the organizer, the people who make the money from the prostitution services. But in terms of just being a straight user of services provided by a sex worker, we think he might be the only person in the country.
I certainly see what you're saying and can appreciate the legal argument you put forth in your motion for bail, Mark. And even if the judge agrees, let's say the judge agrees that this is an exceptional application of the Mann Act, and your client may be the only one who's jailed right now. You've cited every other case you can find. It's an ROR type bond situation. What about the other component that we know the judge is very concerned about, and that?
So let's listen to what she's going to say to him about the other concerns. So let me ask you guys a question. Did Jerry mess up? Because now, if it's those charges really don't apply, did they mess up by not really paying attention to what was in that house? What was in the hotel when he got arrested? That's very interesting that we have not heard from no other jurors since that other guy. The jurors have been silent. So are they happy about what they chose? It was up to them to make a decision, and they made a decision. But now are they feeling away because if they're saying certain things don't apply, did the jurors do a great job? Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 if you've been here before where you're watching from. Do you think that he'll have a new trial? Do you think he'll get pardoned? Or do you think he'll be released? Let me know in the comments.
That is your client's propensity for violence. Even you yourself acknowledged that in the closing arguments of the case with what happened to Cassie on the video that the world saw, and in the instances with Jane. How can you reconcile your position now in this motion for bail, that he should be free and is not a danger to the public, when we know these instances happened in the past?
So I think the key thing with what you said is that it happened in the past. I mean, the only instance that we have in recent memory was one, and the trial evidence showed this, where Jane essentially, started a fight with Mr. Combs, smashed his head against the counter, threw glasses at him. Jealousy was.
Jane started a situationship with him. So then what happened to Jane? We saw what happened to Cassie. That might be okay, you guys. Why didn't Gina show up to court? Why didn't Gina show up to court? Okay, let's continue.
Always a feature of their relationship, and Jane was jealous of his relationship with another woman, and so that was about 14 months ago that happened. But other than that, everything dates back, a number of years, 2018 and before.
Dates back several years, but it still happened.
And as we made, the point we made in the bail application as well is, Mr. Combs is seeking counseling, was seeking counseling for domestic violence before he was arrested. He was attending a program here in New York, and we really wish that he could have stayed in that program, but the federal government arrested him, and then he was in jail, and he couldn't continue with this very outstanding program, which I believe he'll come back to.
So wait a minute. He was in counseling, but then when he got arrested, he still had FO stuff in the hotel. Wait a minute. If he was in counseling, but he still had the FO stuff in the hotel when he got arrested. Let's go back.
What the judge is very concerned about, and that is your client's propensity for violence. Even you yourself acknowledged that in the closing arguments of the case with what happened to Cassie on the video that the world saw, and in the instances with Jane. How can you reconcile your position now in this motion for bail, that he should be free and is not a danger to the public, when we know these instances happened in the past?
So I think the key thing with what you said is that it happened in the past. I mean, the only instance that we have in recent memory was one, and the trial evidence showed this, where Jane essentially, started a fight with Mr. Combs, smashed his head against the counter, threw glasses at him. Jealousy was always a feature of their relationship, and Jane was jealous of his relationship with another woman. So that was about 14 months ago that happened. But other than that, everything dates back, a number of years, 2018.
Let me know in the comments. Do you guys remember what happened to Jane if she did that to Diddy? Let me know in the comments what Diddy did to Jane, because I don't remember. Note it in the comments for me. I'll look it up, though.
And before. And as we made, the point we made in the bail application as well is, Mr. Combs is seeking counseling, was seeking counseling for domestic violence before he was arrested. He was attending a program here in New York, and we really wish that he could have stayed in that program, but the federal government arrested him, and then he was in jail, and he couldn't continue with this very outstanding program, which I believe he'll come back to if he's released. And that's really, I mean, I started my career in the Manhattan DA's office And I would see, all manner of domestic violence, and it's a very difficult crime for everyone involved. I mean, it's difficult, obviously, for the victim who has to live in fear from one of the people in her lives that she's the closest to or he's the closest to. But what I saw in the DA's office is that these were not resulting in lengthy prison sentences. These were resulting in appropriate, treatment programs, self-awareness, therapy, things like that. And I think this is what Mr. Combs needs rather than an extended time in prison.
So do you think it was written wrong? Remember what they took out of his house, okay, and what they took out of that hotel. And since he didn't get RICO, how did they not push the RICO more so than the Cassie stuff? They never should have made the stuff a lot about Cassie. It should have been what was in the hotel, what was at his house, and what you retrieved from the house, and who was on those videos from the house. Who was on those videos from the house? When these civil lawsuits come out, it's going to be interesting. When the civil lawsuits come out, it's going to be interesting. And do they have facts in regards to their allegations? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Mark, my understanding is that Jane wrote him a letter to get into the battery.
Okay, let's go.
Which I believe he'll come back to if he's released. And that's really, I started my career in the Manhattan DA's office, and I would see, all manner of domestic violence, and it's a very difficult crime for everyone involved. I mean, it's difficult, obviously, for the victim who has to live in fear from one of the people in her lives that she's the closest to or he's the closest to. But what I saw in the DA's office is that these were not resulting in lengthy prison sentences. These were resulting in appropriate, treatment programs, self-awareness, therapy, things like that. And I think this is what Mr. Combs needs rather than an extended time in prison.
Mark, my understanding is that Jane wrote him a letter to get into the batterers program before he was arrested for the instant case. Is that correct?
So they were in the process of writing a letter. So what happened with Mr. Combs, and this is because of his notoriety, and I think this is really unfortunate.
Yes, I remember that statement. Get rid of the what? Get rid of what kind of boxes? Y'all remember that statement? So concerning. He didn't only just date Cassie. He dated other people outside of Cassie. So why didn't all those women take the stand? Problem one. Okay, Jane took the stand, but where was Gina? Remember how Gina did the interview? So that should have been brought up. Hello? That interview, okay, you don't want to come to court? Let's show this interview that the other ex-girlfriend did, because it would have showed a parallel in regards to Cassie and Gina and Jane Doe. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Is that I tried very hard to get him into a batterers program in April, April and May before he got arrested. And I think because of his notoriety, a lot of them didn't want to take him. And so
he tried to get him in a program, and a lot of them didn't want to take him because of his notoriety. Or did they not want to take him because of the Cassie video? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
I think what was happening around the time of the incident that was testified to at the trial is that Jane was, in fact, helping him write a letter to get into one of these programs. And at the end of the day, he didn't get into the program that I think the letter was directed to, but we got him to another program, and he did start, therapy and counseling in that program, and did that for several weeks.
That's so big, you guys. I people for being in the comments. Did they ever talk about him and his recordings from jail, stating get rid of the pizza boxes and what that means? For us smart people, we know what the pizza boxes mean. Really concerning. Let me throw a wrench in there. There was an award show within the last 5 years. It wasn't recent. There was an award show, and one of the hosts asked the people in the audience, did they want to get pizza? And who got money for pizza? So concerning. Go back and look it up. Award show, they're offering pizza to the people in the audience. So concerning. So it's in our faces. The smart people get it, because if y'all over here, y'all get it. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Before he was arrested. So that's what your question is. The answer is yes, that is true.
Thank you for that, Mark.
Very sick. Very concerning. These celebrities play in people's faces. These award shows play in people's faces. It needed to be exposed because they're playing in people's faces. The charges that they wrote up should have stuck, and they didn't. So we got to be okay with what the jury decided. But Diddy is having his lawyers work overtime. Baby, Diddy is having these lawyers work overtime. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Is he availing himself of any programs now in the jail?
So the MDC doesn't have the programming.
Now let's listen. You gonna tell me that place don't have proper programming? Let's listen to what he's saying. Hold on.
I think the letter was directed to, but we got him to another program, and he did start, therapy and counseling in that program, and did that for several weeks before he was arrested. So that's what your question is. The answer is yes, that is true.
And thank you for that, Mark. Is he availing himself of any programs now in the jail?
So the MDC doesn't have the programming that some other jails do, because it's not a holding facility. It's really for people who are in a pre-trial posture. So it's by its nature somewhat transient. So other prisons where people go to serve their sentences have much better programming. And so the programming at the MDC is not really that well established. That being said, we've cobbled together therapists and people who go in and speak with Mr. Combs, and he's availing himself of that.
So you telling me the feds don't have proper counseling for these people inside? Okay, let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
When we come back after this break, we're going to turn our attention to sentencing. Currently, the date is set for October 3rd. Remember, Diddy was acquitted of the crime of racketeering conspiracy, acquitted of the sex trafficking offenses, convicted of transportation to commit prostitution. That carries a maximum allowable penalty of up to 10 years in prison. When we come back, I ask his attorney what he's hoping for in terms of a sentence and Diddy's plans after it's all said and done.
So this is the thing. Both those carry 10 years. Diddy's trying to say that he didn't interact with those people that was hired. But who paid them? Where did the money come from? He said there was no interaction. But halt. Stop right there. Didn't he ask those people to release? I gotta be careful what I say. Didn't he ask those people to release? And didn't he play in the juices? If y'all don't know, go back and listen to certain situations about the hired people. Didn't he play in the juices? So even if you did not touch, if he played in the juices, he was a part of. Put it in comments, play in the juices. They said that regarding the court situation. And then he would interact with Cassie sometimes after she was done with the people, right? And then wasn't he orchestrating what should happen? Go faster, go slower, put on more baby oil. Am I wrong? So even though, and how do we not know that there was alleged other situation? Did he remember how Cassie had said, should we add a girl? And he said, well, why would we do that? Did y'all hear that? Cassie had said, why don't we add a girl? He said, why would we do that? So he liked to have guys do that to Cassie. So concerning. Let's listen in. Don't forget to subscribe, you guys. There's about 159 in the building. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get the likes up. Let's get the likes up. Please double tap the screen to get the likes up. The like is above the video, below the video. If you're watching from a phone, press 1. You can hit the like button by double tapping the screen and it'll hit the like. It'll go red. Let's continue. Let's continue. Hold on. Hold on.
Please, have your expectations with the federal government changed at all with Maureen Comey being let go from her position?
No.
That's a good question. Don't forget, Maureen Comey got fired. Should Maureen Comey have gotten fired?
I thought Maureen Comey was an outstanding lawyer, and is an outstanding lawyer, and I think will go on to have a terrific career, regardless of where she is. I think it's a loss to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and it's unfortunate, in my view, what happened to her personally. I got to know her and all the members of the government trial team pretty well during the trial, and I have a great deal of respect for all of them, including Ms. Comey. But no, that's an outstanding office. The Southern District of New York has a deep bench, as they say. They're very good lawyers in the office and on this trial team. So I don't think the presentation of evidence or arguments will suffer, even though Maureen left.
Mark, it seems like your team and the government are just miles apart on what kind of a sentence would be appropriate for Mr. Combs. What is your greatest hope, your most ideal hope for sentence for him?
So my hope obviously is that he gets out as soon as possible. We filed a bail application this morning, and my hope obviously is that that the judge sees the wisdom in that and agrees with us. The government will oppose it, and the government will oppose it for reasons that they believe are sound. Now, in terms of sentencing, we believe that a sentence along the lines of time served is more than sufficient. If you look at what Johns are sentenced to, even if they're prosecuted in the first case in this country, no one's doing close to the time that Mr. Combs has done in jail. So I think we have to treat like cases alike, and I think he should be released in short order.
Mark, what are his hopes for his life? Because at some point this will all be...
So now they're going to talk about his future. There's about 255 in the building. If I can please get 255 people to please subscribe and thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to hit 50K by next month.
Said and done. We don't know what exactly the sentence will be that the court imposes, but after that, does he hope to return to music?
I don't know that he's thought that far ahead. The phrase he uses with me, and I can share it because he said that I could, is he says he feels he has more to give. And I think that's the focus. I think that he's spent a lot of time reflecting. He's a religious man. He's a man who has 7 children. He takes care of them.
He's a religious man. Okay, let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip. And what happened to Cassie? What happened to Jane? What allegedly happened with the employees? Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip. All comments are alleged.
Them, all of them. He takes care. One of his long relationships with whom he had 4 kids, has passed away, but the rest he takes good care of the women he's in a relationship with. He's really a very caring, dedicated person, and so I think he wants to emphasize that part of it.
Caring and dedicated. Would you want your mother dating him? Would you want your daughter dating him? Would you want your niece or anybody in your family dating him? Let me know in the comments. Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip. This is just, we're just talking.
Life, come out of jail, spend some great time with his children, who he misses very much. They get to see their dad, and I think he's going to be happy in the short term, having the simpler pleasures in life, but I expect he's a genius in my view, and he has unparalleled talent and ambition and vision. And I'd say vision is probably the most pronounced of all those things. And I expect big things out of him. But I think we need to let him have a little transition, have some downtime. I just spoke to him an hour ago. I said, I'm not going to rest until you feel the hot August sun on your neck. And have the simple things in life, and you can take it from there. And I think he sees the wisdom in that.
Mark, you really couldn't have a better advocate. I mean that sincerely, advocate to advocate. I was incredibly impressed with you and what I got to see and how passionately you've worked for him.
Let's also think about this. How many celebrities showed up for court? Kanye. How many of his friends showed up within the last 5 years? You guys remember who he's hung out with, who he has dinners with. Kanye showed up and his family. What other celebrities showed up to support? Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip. So let me go back. Do you think he'll get a pardon? Do you think he'll be released from jail? Or do you think he'll get a new trial? Let me know in comments.
And his defense. One last question before I know we have to let you go. As you know, no cameras are allowed in federal court, and that's something I hope that changes one day. Tell me, if the public were able to have watched, do you think it would have perhaps changed any public opinions? In other words, is there anything you think the public might have missed in not being able to actually see the trial?
That's a great question, and it's such an interesting issue. I mean, there's something about federal court that's wonderfully traditional. They didn't have cameras in 1789 when the Southern District was created, and it hasn't changed. And so much about trying cases in federal court where things haven't changed, and there's so much about that that's wonderful. That all being said, I do think the public would have come to view Mr. Combs very differently than the way he depicted in the tabloids and in these lawsuits, which lack merit. And I wish that they could have seen the evidence firsthand, the way the jury did. And one thing I want to throw out, I mean, not too much, but there's been a little second guessing I've seen of the jury verdict by some people in some publications. And this was an immensely dedicated jury.
Do you think if it wasn't a holiday right around the corner, do you think the jurors would have made a different decision if they had to make a decision 2 weeks or 3 weeks prior? Do you think they should have carried over after the holiday? Many people were on that stand, allegedly. Many people feel a little too long. Many people feel that other witnesses should have been called. All his girlfriends for the last 10 years. Hello, all of them. Any concerns, any text messages, all of them. Do you think that he's going to be released, get a pardon, or do you think he's going to have to stay in jail until he serves his time? Or do you think he'll get a new trial? Let me know in the comments.
They were on time every day. They paid close attention. They all took notes. You can tell when a jury is really functioning at 100%, and this jury was. And I wish that everyone could have seen what the jury saw. I think that would have been very good for Mr. Combs and very appropriate for the world to have seen it with their own eyes.
Most definitely. And the respect you showed us in this interview. Shooting for the other side. Everyone's just doing their jobs. The government did what they felt was best under the circumstances, following the law as they saw, and you all did your job advocating for your client. Mark Agnifilo, thank you so much for the conversation. I hope we can talk again sometime.
Thank you. I hope so too.
All right, so now let's take a look at the defense's bond proposal package. So Diddy's legal team is proposing that
they're about to talk about the package. There's about 150 people in the building. If I can please get 150 people to hit the subscribe button, thank you. We're trying to hit 50K next month.
Client be released on a $50 million bond, and that he be allowed to live in his home in Miami. I should say it's a mansion, it's really a mansion, as he awaits his sentencing in October. Now, the bond would be co-signed by 3 financially responsible people. His travel would be limited. It'd be limited to Florida and to New York, and his passport would be surrendered. His lawyers say if necessary, they would even add in home detention, so electronic monitoring, private security, mental health treatments, also substance abuse treatment, and electronic surveillance to make sure that he stays where he's supposed to stay.
So if the judge has already said no, how many times? If the judges have already said no, how many times? Do you think that he'll get released this time? Let me know in the comments. If the judges have said no, how many times? Do you think that he'll do it this time? All these proposals and these motions, this judge may feel like he probably thought he had a break until the sentencing. They're going to keep throwing stuff to the wall until something sticks. There's about 270 and 272 in the building. If I can please get 200 people to please subscribe and thank you. It's so concerning because a lot of these people have spoke up of the concerns they had. Some of the people didn't even take the stand. Then allegedly the civil lawsuits are going to come out. These civil lawsuits, if they don't have receipts, they should be thrown out. Thank you for subbing. I appreciate you, Ryan. I love the name Ryan. I don't know why, but I love the name Ryan. I always have. But yeah, don't forget there's these civil lawsuits. So he may be trying to get some peace because once they start talking about those civil lawsuits again, that's going to be a concern. That's going to be a concern. And there needs to be receipts, police reports, if there's any allegations to show proof, if there's any concerns in regards to hospital records. People need to have proof. Don't be throwing out these civil lawsuits and they don't have proof. Many people feel that Hollywood is being exposed. Many people feel that Hollywood is being exposed. And then remember how there was a situation in regards to that club situation and how that whole situation transpired and the other guy went to jail. So why haven't we heard from the jurors? Y'all let me know. Why do y'all think the jurors are so quiet? Do you think the jurors will speak after his sentencing? And who told the jurors to be silent? Are the jurors concerned? Why are the jurors silent? A lot of times jurors love to speak or they write books. So do you think the jurors are being quiet because they're writing books? Or do you think the jurors are being quiet because they want to speak after the sentencing? Very interesting. And then if you did not have a video of the jurors leaving the courtroom in a van together, it was tinted. But there was one gentleman that tried to speak out, and he tried to almost allegedly seem like he tried to throw the case by saying, oh, we kind of conversate. They weren't supposed to conversate. Oh, he said he would have went the same direction in regards to what the jurors decided. People called that interview out of that juror. It was the backup juror. What is that when it's a backup juror? You guys know what I'm talking about. So he wasn't a part of everything that was talked about when the jurors deliberated. He wasn't a part of that. So let's continue in regards to what people are saying. Y'all let me know. Do you think he's going to be released, pardoned, different trial, or he's going to have to stay in there until his sentencing? Diddy's keeping his attorneys busy, isn't he? Okay, let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Say that the way this was charged doesn't exactly.
Okay, you think he's going to have to stay in? You don't think he'll pardon him? Yeah, I hear you.
Match what Sean Combs did, and they say he's the only person who's ever been convicted of this charge, transportation for the purposes of prostitution, who hasn't benefited from the prostitution other than through voyeurism. They say voyeurism, watching other people have sex, isn't what this law was meant to address. Combs, they say, didn't profit from the prostitution. In other words, he was no pimp here, and he wasn't a John either. He didn't have sex with the male escorts. Instead, he brought girlfriends and male escorts across state lines to watch them have sex. And his attorneys say that that just doesn't fit what the law is about.
Brian, what would it take for a judge to agree to either a new trial or an acquittal here?
The jury would agree to what the arguments, as Aaron Katersky laid out, were to be true. That the use of the Mann Act for specifically transportation, engagement, prostitution has never been in the ways applied here. This would be new precedent in many ways for both ways. If the judge was to agree that the Mann Act can extend to an individual who does not commercially profit from a sexual act or who does not participate in it, but it also would be precedent setting to dismiss or acquit Sean Combs of these two charges. The other aspect of it as well would be to look at this case and say that the information that came in from the racketeering conspiracy allegations or the sex trafficking, we're talking about the force, the fraud, the coercion, that infamous Intercontinental Hotel video would have been prejudicial towards Sean Combs if just looking through the lens of his transportation to engage in prostitution, that argument would allow for another trial. But I don't think it's going to happen at this level in front of Judge Subramanian. I think this is a stronger argument on an appeal if they bring it to a higher court.
So, Brian, is the idea that if you had just charged him with this and the trial was just about this, he would not have been convicted?
Yeah, that's the second part of the argument, that argument for a new trial. They're saying that if you had information like the Intercontinental video, the allegations of assault or coercion, that would not have come in because they would not have been relevant as the defense is arguing, the consensual recording of sex and transportation of individuals across state lines, that information would not come in. And because that information did come in, it prejudiced Sean Combs. And for that reason, or at least for one of the many arguments, Sean Combs should be afforded a new trial.
And the defense is also trying to get him out of jail on bond or bail as he awaits the sentencing.
There's about 139 people in the building, so can I please get 100 people to please hit that subscribe button? Don't forget, super chats are welcome. $2, $5, super chats are welcome. Let's continue to get the likes up, everyone. Please hit the like button, and thank you. So let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Lesser charge. What's the latest on that?
Along the same lines, they don't believe conviction on this one count warrants his incarceration. The judge said that there is a presumption of being held without bond or bail when you're convicted of this crime. And
thank you.
That's a prosecutor's push. The judge agreed. The judge also noted that Combs was violent, that the violence was depicted on the video. It was testified to by witnesses. The defense, what Brian says that none of that really should have applied to this one charge. So therefore, let him out until he's sentenced on October 3rd.
Brian, the fact that the judge cited violence and that hotel video as part of the reason for keeping Combs in jail, could that help the defense with this larger argument that this other conviction should be dropped?
In some sense, yes, but what we're doing is kind of mixing apples and oranges as to what a judge can consider for bail purposes, when you're asking the question of whether or not a person is a flight risk or whether or not they're a danger to community. Judge Subramanian, looking at that standard, used the violence that he saw, that we all saw in this trial, to keep him in. But the different analysis for whether or not a charge should be dismissed applies in a different setting. That would be the apples and oranges again, where the violence should not have come in if Sean Combs was only tried for this one charge. And so they can kind of pick and choose their arguments differently as it applies to different standards. And yes, I think overall could benefit them.
Aaron, what are you watching for looking ahead to sentencing in October?
Well, he faces, in theory, 10 years in prison. It doesn't seem like that's what the judge is thinking, because even though he found Sean Combs to be a danger and kept him in jail pending sentencing, he also challenged federal prosecutors to show him cases where anyone convicted solely
of the charge of transportation to engage in prostitution was given anything along the lines of a 10-year prison sentence. And the defense certainly doesn't think those cases exist. Prosecutors haven't submitted anything just yet. They're going to push undoubtedly for a stiff sentence. The judge has taken note of Combs' violence. The defense says he is already talking about a batterers program, so he can probably do that without having to be in jail for any more than time served.
All right.
So will he get time served? Will he get released? Will he get pardoned? Y'all let me know. What you think will happen? What will happen?
Combs once again begging a federal judge to let him out of jail before his October sentencing. This time, his legal team claiming it's not just unfair, but unprecedented. Combs has already spent nearly a year behind bars, and earlier this month, he was convicted of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. In a letter to the judge, his defense team pointing out that other defendants in similar cases, similar convictions, were released before sentencing, writing, Sean Combs should not be in jail for this conduct. And although Combs was cleared of those serious charges like sex trafficking and racketeering, the judge kept him detained, citing a specific law that calls for jail time. His lawyers also calling the conditions at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn unsafe, unacceptable, and claiming that Combs is facing ongoing risk of violence. They are asking a judge for a $50 million bond to allow him to live in his Miami mansion, guys. Hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs once again begging a federal judge.
So if they've asked for information, do you think that Diddy will try to sue the federal government? Do you think he'll try and sue them because he's not being released? If the judge asks for cases similar to his, do you think he'll try and sue?
Release the files of the dead serial sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein. President Donald Trump's Deputy Attorney General, who is Trump's former private lawyer, just finished 2 days, Thursday and Friday, of meetings with the convicted felon Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse young girls. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Maxwell met for 9 hours at the federal courthouse in Tallahassee, Florida. This is Maxwell's attorney, David Marcus.
Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped, she never invoked a privilege. She never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability.
The meetings with Ghislaine Maxwell at a federal courthouse in Tallahassee come as President Trump faces growing bipartisan pressure to release the government's files on Epstein, longtime friend of Donald Trump. On Friday, Trump was questioned if he considered pardoning Maxwell.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell? It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something I'm allowed to do, but it's something I have not thought about.
One of the first accusers of Jeffrey Epstein says she warned the FBI and the New York Police Department to look into his relationship with Donald Trump as early as 1996. Maria Farmer is now suing the government, which she said failed to protect victims. In a new interview with the New York Times, Maria Farmer said her only sense of justice has come from the conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's convicted sex trafficking accomplice. Maria Farmer also spoke on MSNBC with Jen Psaki about Ghislaine Maxwell.
I've never met a more predatory, terrifying human being in my entire life, and neither had Virginia Giuffre, and neither has Annie, or Anushka, or many girls like Shantae Davies. There's hundreds of us that were preyed upon by Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a very dangerous person, and she threatened my life on many occasions. I've had
Allegedly.
to be in hiding because of this predatory child predator and just victim predator. So it's completely unacceptable for anyone to call her a victim. The woman is not a victim, she's a victimizer.
So that's Maria Farmer, who has alleged that both Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein abused her and her sister, Annie Farmer, who has testified about how Ghislaine Maxwell not only groomed and recruited her, but also took part in her abuse. Annie Farmer spoke on ABC News.
She was the one who asked me to undress. She was the one who exposed my chest. She's the one who touched me. And I think that that was not unusual. I mean, that was something that came out in her trial, and one of the things that she was found guilty of. The Department of Justice is clear on that she herself is a sexual predator who has participated in this abuse.
For more, we're joined by Vicky Ward, longtime investigative journalist, host, and co-producer of the series Chasing Ghislaine, the untold story of the woman in Epstein's shadow. It's a podcast series. It's a TV series. Vicky Ward profiled Jeffrey Epstein for Vanity Fair in 2003. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Vicky. Let's go back to 2003. Before we talk about this Deputy Attorney General meeting, the fact that you tried to get Maria and Annie's story out so many years ago, you would have broken this story. But you talk about how the editor-in-chief of Vanity Fair stopped you from doing this, and it came out to be just a kind of profile of Jeffrey Epstein.
That's right, Amy, and thank you for having me. Yeah, you know, I was assigned to write about Jeffrey Epstein, who was an enigma back then. He was not someone whose name was in the newspapers, except for the fact that he popped up in the fall of 2002 as having flown Bill Clinton on his plane to Africa. And on the back of that, I was assigned to go out and find who this kind of Gatsby-like...
Please like the video. Please like the video. Please subscribe. There's about 64 in the building. Don't forget to subscribe and continue to hit the like button. Thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Figure was, who lived in the biggest private townhouse in New York, who had an island, a ranch in New Mexico. Where had his money come from? And along the way, I discovered that he had a reputation for having a lot of young women around him. This was in addition to Ghislaine Maxwell, who was sort of like a Girl Friday. Her role became sort of very nebulous. And I did encounter the two farmer sisters who told me their harrowing stories. They went the record, which was a very brave thing to do, given, as you heard Maria Farmer just there saying that, you know, she felt they were coming after her for a lot of her life. And you know, it was a difficult time for me. I was on a high-risk pregnancy, so once I'd handed the piece in, I went on bed rest before I ultimately went into labor. Jeffrey Epstein was threatening me and telling me he was going to find out where I was birth, and he was going to have a witch doctor place a curse on my unborn children. He was clearly furious about the fact that I had spoken to the farmer sisters. That more than anything else about what I'd uncovered enraged him. And when I was at home on bed rest, I heard from a fact checker at the magazine who emailed me that he was in the Vanity Fair offices meeting with the editor-in-chief in person. I knew that the magazine was still waiting for photographs. Yes, and the next thing that I knew was, you know, when I saw a final galley of the piece that was already on its way to appear in the published version of the magazine, the farmer sisters' allegations had been removed. I will stress I didn't obviously at the time have any idea of the scale of this awful sort of pyramid scheme that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had going on with underage girls. But I did have the farmer sisters, and obviously it was appalling because they had gone on record. So Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were aware of what they had said, and it was a horrendous situation.
And so, Jeffrey Epstein, there was this deal that ultimately would take down Alex Acosta once he became Secretary of Labor, because he was the U.S. Attorney in Florida that cut this sweetheart deal that meant Jeffrey Epstein could serve 13 months in a Palm Beach jail, leaving every day for about 10 hours, in which the allegations are he abused one young woman after another. 13 months, then he was out, and it would take until 2019 for the federal charges to be brought in New York. Now, that's a lot to get in here, but these victims, let's talk about how many you believe there have been. I mean, you have one victim after another saying they were victimized, and then Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein would say, can you go get others? One young woman said she can't live with herself. She recruited like 40 kids in her high school, girls, often, you know, poor, needing money. They would be paid something like $200. Another said 60. She recruited 60 friends. Are we talking upwards of 1,000 people, children or young women, who were abused or raped by Jeffrey Epstein with the help of Ghislaine Maxwell?
Well, Amy, I mean, that's actually a figure I think Pam Bondi, you know, I think she said 1,000. I mean, one of the things that became very, very clear when, you know, I sat through Ghislaine Maxwell's 6-week trial was the sort of the cleverness as well as the sickness of the manipulation that went on inside Jeffrey Epstein's household, beginning, if you like, with Ghislaine Maxwell, this very polished, sophisticated, Oxford-educated woman who spoke many languages, who knew presidents and heads of state all around the world. Once she had got these much more vulnerable young women inside that house, sort of effectively normalizing for them the incredible abuse that went on. They were then incentivized to turn around and go and get, as you say, these other children. And it became, one of the things that became very clear in her trial was the sickness, but also the scale of this web. One of the reasons that you sort of only had 4 victims come and testify at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial was that there were complications with other stories because Virginia Roberts, for example, who was, in a way, single victim whose civil litigation against Ghislaine Maxwell ultimately caused this whole sort of house of cards to come tumbling down, and Jeffrey Epstein finally to face the music in 2019. Virginia Roberts' story is a complicated one because she then was accused of going out to recruit other girls. So it's a very complicated, horrible story.
Virginia Roberts, you're talking about Virginia Giuffre, who was an out survivor and ultimately sued Prince Andrew, unsettled for some undisclosed amount, and apparently died by suicide. She died by suicide. It's not clear Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide, but she just recently died in Australia at the age of 41.
Yes.
I want to get to President Trump. What his connection is to this, and who are the people who you feel have not been properly investigated? And this possibility, you heard Trump himself, saying not clear whether she would be pardoned or her sentence commuted.
Right. And I also think, it's worth thinking about the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell, is a citizen of many countries. Another option is, whether or not she would be sent back to Europe or to England, where there may be a different view of her, given her background.
Given her background, meaning that she's the daughter of Robert Maxwell.
Exactly. She comes from a family that's very prominent socially in England, that once held great power and great wealth, and it's a different culture, different society. That I think would be an option.
For people to understand, he was sort of the competitor with Rupert Murdoch, a media mogul, who she was very close to, and died mysteriously at sea, his body overboard.
That's right, but he was also a politician. He was a massive worldwide publisher who had enormous influence all around the world. As you say, he died in very strange circumstances. He's given a sort of hero's burial in Israel at the Mount of Olives. When he died, it emerged that he had basically robbed the pension.
Hold on 1 second, y'all. I gotta save something.
We were underage. We were little girls. I was 6.
So, hold on.
If you like, with Ghislaine Maxwell, this very polished, sophisticated, Oxford-educated woman who spoke many languages, who knew presidents and heads of state all around the world. Once she had got these much more vulnerable young women inside that house, sort of effectively normalizing for them the incredible abuse that went on, they were then incentivized to turn around and go and get, as you say.
So that's the biggest thing. Do you guys think that Diddy will get pardoned? If you guys are just now coming in, we had heard briefly in regards to his attorney speaking up and speaking out. Do you think that he'll get a pardon? Do you think that he'll get released? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments. Do you think he'll get pardoned? Do you think he'll get released? Do you think that his request for bail will be granted? Let me know in the comments.
Sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges, but was convicted of transporting sex workers across state lines. Now his attorneys say his actions don't fit the crime. Let's bring in Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Petersky and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. Aaron, what's the latest here?
So, Diane, his attorneys say that the way this was charged doesn't exactly match what Sean Combs did, and they say he's the only person who's ever been convicted of this charge, transportation for the purposes of prostitution, who hasn't benefited from the prostitution other than through voyeurism. They say voyeurism, watching other people have sex, isn't what this law was meant to address. Combs, they say, didn't prostitution. In other words, he was no pimp here, and he wasn't a John either. He didn't have sex with the male escorts. Instead, he brought girlfriends and male escorts across state lines to watch them have sex, and his attorneys say that that just doesn't fit what the law is about.
Brian, what would it take for a judge to agree to either a new trial or an acquittal here?
So the judge agreed to what the arguments as Aaron Katersky laid are to be true, that the use of the Mann Act, or specifically transportation, engagement, prostitution, has never been in the ways applied here. This would be new precedent in many ways for both ways. If the judge was to agree that the Mann Act can extend to an individual who does not commercially profit from a sexual act or who does not participate in it, but it also would be precedent setting to dismiss or acquit Sean Combs of these two charges. The other aspect of it as well would be to look at this case and say that the information that came in from the racketeering conspiracy allegations or the sex trafficking, we're talking about the force, the fraud, the coercion, that infamous Intercontinental Hotel video would have been prejudicial towards Sean Combs if just looking through the lens of his transportation to engage in prostitution. That argument would allow for another trial. But I don't think it's going to happen at this level in front of Judge Subramanian. I think this is a stronger argument on appeal if they bring it to a higher court.
So, Brian, is the idea that if you had just charged him with this and the trial was just about this, he would not have been convicted?
Yeah, that's the second part of the argument, that argument for a new trial. They're saying that if you have...
So did the jury do the right thing in the decisions they made? Let me know in the comments. Will he get pardoned? Will he get released? Or will he get bonded out? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, you guys. We got about 77 in the building. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please hit the like, you guys. Can 50 people please double tap that screen? If you're watching from a phone, press 1. If you're watching from a phone, press 1. Please double tap the screen to hit the like. If I can please get 50 people to hit the like. The thumbs up above the video, below the video. Thank you.
Information
Thank
like
you.
The Intercontinental video, the allegations of assault or coercion that would not have come in because it would not have been relevant as the defense is arguing, the consensual recording of sex and transportation of individuals across state lines. That information would have not come in. And because that information did come in, it prejudiced Sean Combs. And for that reason, at least for one of the many arguments, Sean Combs should be afforded a new trial.
And the defense is also trying to get him out of jail on bond or bail as he awaits the sentencing on this lesser charge. What's the latest on that?
Along the same lines, they don't believe that a conviction on this one count warrants his incarceration. The judge said that there is a presumption of being held without bond or bail when you're convicted of this crime, and that's what prosecutors pushed. The judge agreed. The judge also noted that Combs was violent, that the violence was depicted on the video. It was testified to by witnesses. The defense, what Brian says that none of that really should have applied to this one charge, so therefore let him out until he's sentenced on October 3rd.
Brian, the fact that the judge cited violence and that hotel video as part of the reason for keeping Combs in jail, could that help the defense with this larger argument that this other conviction should be dropped?
In some sense, yes, but what we're doing is kind of mixing apples and oranges as to what a judge can consider for bail purposes when you're asking the question of whether or not a person is a flight risk or whether or not they're...
Oh, really? Is that what you think what happened with the jurors? Oh, and it's interesting that we haven't heard from the jurors either. So that's interesting. Okay, everyone, we did a lot in regards to what we needed to talk about. I thank everyone for being here. I thank everyone for supporting the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. There's about 84 people in the building. Please don't forget to subscribe and thank you. 84 people, please hit subscribe and thank you. Please continue to hit the like, you guys. Let's get the likes up. Can I please get 50 people to double tap that screen to hit the like? Or hit the like above the video or below the video, the thumbs up. If you're watching from a phone, hit the like, please, and thank you. Disclaimer, under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1971, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Don't forget, focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. I'm going to play the last of this video. And
community, Judge Subramanian, looking at that standard, used the violence that he saw, that we all saw in this trial to keep him in. But the different analysis for whether or not a charge should be dismissed applies in a different setting. That would be the apples and oranges again, where the violence should not have come in if Sean Combs was only tried for this one charge. And so they can kind of pick and choose their arguments differently as it applies to different standards. And yes, it overall could benefit them.
Aaron, what are you watching for, looking ahead to sentencing in October?
Well, he faces, in theory, 10 years in prison. It doesn't seem like that's what the judge is thinking, because even though he found Sean Combs to be a danger and kept him in jail pending sentencing, he also challenged federal prosecutors to show him cases where anyone convicted solely of the charge of transportation to engage in prostitution.
But is their case very similar in regards to the ex-girlfriends? If each charge holds 10 years, Why are they trying to change that? Remember how when they showed us the clip, how each case shows 10 years, 10 years? Why are they trying to change? Each case is not the same or what transpired in regards to those men and women. So that's interesting to me.
Was given anything along the lines of a 10-year prison sentence. And the defense certainly doesn't think those cases exist. Prosecutors haven't submitted anything just yet. They're going to push undoubtedly for a stiff sentence. The judge has taken note of Combs' violence. The defense says he is already talking about a batterers program, so he can probably do that without having.
So he's been in jail each time the bond has been denied. So we'll see what happens in regards to the judge. Will he get acquitted? Will he have a new trial? Will he get bonded out? Will Donald Trump pardon him? That's a lot. They're throwing a lot at the wall. Each case might have been somewhat different because who's to say what happened, what transpired? And who gave those people they paid for money? Where'd the money come from? And wasn't he playing in the juices even though he didn't interact? So there was no interaction with any of them? But didn't he direct what was supposed to happen? So that's interesting. The law is the law. I don't know the law. I'm not a judge. I'm not an attorney. So the judge is going to have to make a decision. The jury made a decision. Did the jury do right? Did the jury do right? And do they have a good argument in regards to his charges? The judge asked for case study, so we'll see what happens. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for supporting the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to Let's Talk About It Media 21. I hope you did subscribe and thank you. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. 11 months ago, we had 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers. We've already almost hit 50K. So I thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe. Continue to hit the like button. For the replay game, don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to hit the like button. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. Goodbye. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.